Well, there's a turn-up for the book. A few decades ago, I had this stubborn, half-fogged memory lodged in the back of my head. A Summer of Sci-Fi, one of those strange, perfect stretches of television that only really existed in the analog era, when schedules felt curated by accident rather than algorithm. It kicked off with something that didn't quite fit, something that felt like a documentary but clearly wasn't playing straight. And then rolled directly into proper genre comfort food. In my case, Buck Rogers followed not long after, glossy, pulpy, unapologetically sci-fi. At the time, I was young enough that the edges blurred. Was it real? Was it a joke? Was it something I imagined? For years, I genuinely wondered whether I'd dreamt the whole thing. I remembered recording it to VHS, watching it more than once, and then nothing. Tape gone. Memory unverified. Just this nagging sense that Jonathan Ross once told me aliens were real and then politely handed me Buck Rogers to process it all. For years I tried to track that tape down, digging through old boxes, half-hearted Google searches, dead ends, the kind of media memory that feels too specific to be fake, but too obscure to easily confirm. And then, guess what? It was real. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Damon, and today we're talking about The Aliens Are Coming, the 1997 ITV special that quietly messed with a generation's sense of reality and then vanished into scheduling limbo. Until now, that's right, it's now on YouTube. Broadcast on June 27, 1997, The Aliens Are Coming is a Jonathan Ross-hosted mockumentary that walks a very careful line between comedy, documentary, and cultural commentary. On the surface, it's a light-hearted tour through UFOs in popular culture, Roswell, flying saucers, little green men, conspiracy lore, all framed with Ross's familiar, slightly mischievous delivery. But here's the trick, it never fully winks at the audience. Instead, it presents itself with just enough seriousness to feel plausible, especially if you're watching it late, half paying attention, or, crucially, you're a kid. It features interviews with figures like Nick Pope, formerly of the Ministry of Defense's UFO desk, alongside pop culture heavyweights Mark Hamill and Richard Dreyfuss, both of whom bring a strange legitimacy to the whole affair. Their presence anchors the absurdity. This isn't a sketch show, it isn't overt parody. It's closer to a cultural essay delivered with a raised eyebrow rather than a punchline. And that's why it stuck. The special works because it understands something fundamental about UFO mythology. It lives in the gap between belief and entertainment. It doesn't try to convince you aliens are real, but, it also doesn't fully dismiss the idea. Instead, it traces just how deeply embedded the concept is in modern culture, how it feeds paranoia, hope, fear, wonder, and, distrust of authority all at once. For a 90s audience, especially one raised on the X-Files conspiracy VHS tapes and tabloid headlines, this landed perfectly. It felt informative without being dry, funny without being silly, and unsettling without ever tipping into outright nonsense. Now, obviously, I'm biased. This thing clearly imprinted on me at exactly the wrong, or maybe the right, age. But honestly, if you haven't watched it, you should. Not because it's a lost masterpiece, but because it's a time capsule of how television used to play with ideas instead of, spoon-feeding conclusions. It trusted the audience, it let ambiguity breathe, and it understood that sometimes the idea of aliens is more interesting than any hard answer. And here's the thing. This special is exactly where I first learned about that. One of the best clips in the entire program isn't about flying saucers or Roswell at all. It's the Beadle's About segment. And this is where things get properly surreal for me, because that wasn't just some abstract bit of TV trivia. That episode was filmed down the road from where I lived. I knew that woman. Or at least I knew of her. Everyone did. She was the woman who genuinely believed she'd been visited by an alien. Not in a, ha-ha, silly teleprank way, but in that deeply uncomfortable Beadles about style, where the joke lands, and you're left wondering whether laughing is even appropriate. Seeing that clip again years later, framed inside "The Aliens Are Coming," was like having two timelines suddenly snap together. As a kid, that episode sat in my head as something strange but local, almost mundane in how odd it was. As an adult, watching it contextualized as part of Britain's long-running flirtation with UFO mythology, hoaxes, belief, and mass suggestion, that's when it clicked. That was my first exposure to the idea that belief itself could be engineered, encouraged, shaped by television. And Jonathan Ross knew exactly what he was doing by including it, because suddenly the joke isn't haha aliens, the joke is us. That's also why that Summer of Sci-Fi stuck so hard. It wasn't just Buck Rogers, though, Buck Rogers was absolutely the anchor. Big hair, disco futurism, clean-cut heroics, and that distinctly late 70s optimism about space that feels almost alien now. It was comfort viewing, but it was also part of a wider, unofficial season ITV and Channel 4 seemed to stumble into. You had Genesis 2, that strange, earnest Gene Roddenberry pilot that feels like Star Trek filtered through post-apocalyptic optimism and 70s social experimentation. You had Invaders from Mars, tapping into Cold War paranoia, suburbia under threat, parents not being who they should be, a perfect counterpoint to the lighter stuff. So the tonal spread was wild. On one end, mockumentary, hoax, cultural satire, and, that sort of uneasy laughter. On the other, clean science fiction adventure, pulp futurism, and, a bit of retro-optimism. And sitting in between, you've got paranoia, invasion narratives, and, identity erosion. As a kid, you don't really analyze that. You just sort of absorb it, don't you? Looking back, it's kind of astonishing that all this aired in such close proximity. No content warnings, no branding, no theme night. Just a quiet assumption that, audiences could handle the tonal whiplash and make sense of it themselves. And maybe that's why it worked. Your brain did the connecting on its own. Which brings it all full circle. The Aliens Are Coming didn't exist in a vacuum. It worked because it was surrounded by fiction that had already primed you to think about invasion, otherness, and belief. It didn't have to convince you aliens might be real. It just had to remind you how easily narratives take hold when authority figures, media, and familiarity all line up. The Beadles About clip, the local connection, the way Buck Rogers followed like a palate cleanser. That wasn't accidental. That was television accidentally being brilliant. So turns out that memory wasn't a dream. It wasn't nostalgia lying to me. It was just a moment where television briefly trusted its audience to sit in uncertainty, laugh at themselves, and then drift off into space opera without spelling anything out. That kind of programming doesn't exist anymore. Everything now needs to declare what it is, what it means, and how you're supposed to feel about it. Back then, you were allowed to just experience it. And And sometimes that sticks with you for decades. Especially when it happened down the road from your house. Today, everything is siloed. Everything is labeled. Comedy must be comedy. Documentary must explain itself. Mystery must be solved before the credits roll. Back then, television occasionally let things bleed into each other, and that's why memories like this linger for decades. And maybe that's why it resurfaced now. We're back in an era obsessed with UFOs, whistleblowers, government secrecy and disclosure. Only now it's all filtered through Twitter threads and 30-second clips instead of a wry Jonathan Ross calmly guiding you through cultural paranoia with a smirk. So yeah, turns out I didn't imagine it. The VHS wasn't a fever dream. And that Summer of Sci-Fi actually happened. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally, I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.